A brief introduction about him is Mr. Asif Syed has completed his post graduation in pharmacy with a specialization in pharmaceutics from Pune University. He carries almost 8 years of experience in the area of biosimilar drug product development from various organizations like Cipla Biotech, Wockhardt Biotech, Julfar UAE, Hetero Biopharma, and Dr. Reddy's Biologics. With this short introduction, I welcome Mr. Asif to deliver a talk on biosimilar drug product development and drug delivery device. Over to Mr. Asif.
Yes, hello. Yeah, may I audible
Yes,
too?
I'm sharing. Yeah, you're audible.
Yes, yes. So good morning to all of you. Okay, shall I continue?
Yes, please.
Yes. So thank you, Naipur Kolkata, for inviting me on such a great forum. My today's topic is biosimilar drug product development and drug delivery devices. So this is the disclaimer. Views and thoughts and opinion expressed are solely my own and do not express the views and opinion of my employer. So content of today's topic is introduction, just about introduction of biologics and biosimilar, then formulation and process development of biosimilar, then process characterization of biosimilar, and then process validation. These four are including like development of biosimilar, and fifth one is the like individual topic like drug delivery device. Go to next. Yeah. So first we know the difference between biosimilar and biologics. So biologics is any product which is derived from like a living organism, like human, animal, yeast, microorganism, like MABs, insulin kind of molecule, or vaccines. This come under the biologics, and it's a biosimilar is a small part of biologics. So we should know the like we always confuse biosimilars with generics. Like biosimilar sometimes referred as follow-on biologics, and this is the therapeutic drug which is highly similar with their reference product. But in case of generics, it is identical to its reference product. But biosimilar is not identical with their reference product. It's just highly similar with their reference product. So I summarize here few like definitions as per the different regulatory agencies across the globe. So first one is the US FDA. US FDA defined biosimilar as biologic drug that is highly similar to the reference product, notwithstanding minor difference in clinically inactive component, and there is no clinically meaningful difference between biologics product in terms of safety, purity, potency of the product. That means the biological product which is highly similar with their reference product, minor differences in terms of excipients or inactive component is acceptable, but there is no meaningful clinical difference between the biological product or biosimilar product with their reference product in terms of safety, purity, and potency of the product. In the same way, European Medical Agency defines biosimilar is a biological medicinal product that contains a version of active substance of the already authorized original biological medicinal product in EMA. World Health Organization defines biosimilar as biotherapeutic product that is similar in terms of quality, safety, and efficacy to an already licensed reference biotherapeutic product. And our Indian regulatory agency DCGI defines biosimilar as similar biologics products is that which is similar in terms of quality, safety, and efficacy of an approved reference biological product based on comparability. So biologics is now a growing field in the worldwide. Global market of biologics is expected to be grow up to 50 billion in coming 2030, and in the same way, biologics markets in India also growing very fast. So many companies are coming with a biosimilar product, They are approaching this with regulatory markets and so many new biosimilar products coming in the Indian market as well as ROW market and across the globe. Go to next slide. So we start the our basic formulation development of biosimilars. So if we want to develop any biosimilar product, we first should know about the QTPP of that product. Once we decide we are going for a particular product, then we have to start with the QTPP. QTPP is nothing but the quality target product profile. What quality we are expecting in our product. This is the prospective summary of quality characteristics of drug product that ideally will be achieved to ensure the desired quality, taking into account safety and efficacy of the drug product. Quality target profile form basis and of the design for the development of product. This is the basic for the design of the biosimilar product. How we know about the QTPP? From where we get this QTPP? From the reference product information available in public domain. From that we can evaluate the QTPP and then we come up with the QTPP list. Then in QTPP, what parameter is considered? Please go to next slide. So like that, these parameters, for example, I'm listed here, like dosage form, which dosage form it is liquid, lyophilized, route of administration is subcutaneous, intravenous infusion. Then strength, what is the strength of this product? Like for example, 100 mg per ml, 20 mg per ml, 10 mg per ml. Shelf life, what is the shelf life of that product? 2 years, 4 years, 3 years. Indication, for which indication this product is going to be used. Dose, what is the dose of this product? And some product related attributes like what is the pH of that product, what is the osmolarity of that product, what is protein concentration of that product. Then identification, impurities, sterility, charge variants, BET, bioassay, and receptor binding assay and container closure system of that particular product. These parameters we need to be considered during the quality target product preparation of quality target product profile. So once this QTPP in our hand, we need to move the next step, that is identification of CQA, critical quality attributes. A physical CQA is nothing but physical, chemical, biological or microbiological property or characteristic that should be within appropriate limit or range to ensure the desired quality of product. Means the CQA is a parameter which ensure the quality of our final product. The identify CQA based on severity to harm to the patient and resulting from failure to meet. Like this is the parameter which should be within the limit to ensure the safety of our desired product. All DP related quality attributes are considered as CQA. So this is like QTPP. What is like input for QTPP? The target product profile already in our hand. Then pharmacopoeia requirement. Any pharmacopoeia requirement is there. Like biosimilars not in available in monographs. Few of them is available. But like general information like sterility, BET limit, and this thing are available in pharmacopoeia. Then what is the clinical information available of this product? DS profile, because before going to the DP formulation, we have DS in our hand and we have the DS profile in our hand. So this is the input material for the designing the quality target profile as well as CQA. Then based on this, we have the platform knowledge of product, or we have the innovator analysis data. Based on that, we identify the CQA. If we have the same experience on same kind of molecule, then this also gain the advantage to identifying the CQA. Through all this knowledge sharing or brainstorming, we come up with the CQA list. So CQA is the quality target attribute which we have to ensure throughout the development of the product, our product meet the CQA limit. Please go to the next slide. So I listed few of the CQA, like the same slide as that QTPP, but all QTPP is not a CQA. Only like drug product attributes like pH, osmolarity, protein concentration, identification. This DP related attributes is only CQA. Like shelf life, strength is not a CQA. It's only QTPP. So please go to next slide. So please go previous slide. Yes. So now we'll know about the like actual formulation development. Formulation development consists four steps. That is pre-formulation, then formulation and process development, then container closure selection and stability. In R&D scale, we did first pre-formulation. If you are going for non-infringing formulation, some patent concerns are there, then we need to bypass this patent. So in that case, we need to stabilize the formulation using the excipient which is not used by innovator. Or if you are going with the same formula as of innovator, then we need to follow the same excipients or content as per the innovator. But if it's a non-infringing formulation, we need to stabilize the formulation by using different excipients. Like first buffer for pH, we need to choose as per our desired pH. As per the CQA, we need to choose desired buffer. Like different buffers are available: acetate, citrate, histidine, phosphate buffer. What pH we want, based on that we need to choose the buffer. Then surfactant, to remove any like aggregations or interfacial tension during in glass vial contact surface between glass vial and drug product, we need to add polysorbate or surfactants. Then if our formulation is lyophilized, then we need to add some cryoprotectant like different sugars, mannitol, sorbitol or trehalose. For osmolarity, we need to add the uh, salts like NaCl. Some stabilizer like amino acid also play a role as a stabilizer. Some of that like glycine, arginine also used as stabilizer for formulation. Then antioxidants also used in the formulation. Chelating agent. If some metal impurities in the formulation, we need to add the chelating agent. So once we finalize these excipients, different excipient, this come under the pre-formulation. Once we then we need to move in next step, that is the formulation development. Then excipients in our hand, then we need to finalize the range for this each excipients, then finalize the process of the manufacturing process of this particular product. Once these two excipients and process is finalized, then we need to move to container closure selection. Different types of container, we need to check the compatibility of container with our respective formulation in terms of any leachability, extractables coming from our primary packing material like vials, rubber stopper. Different types of rubber stoppers are there: bromobutyl, chlorobutyl, which is compatible with our product. So we need to check the container closure compatibility. We majorly we did the container closure compatibility by using the upright and inverted stability, so that in that case this product is throughout shelf life or during the stability time, product in contact with this primary packing material. So based on this stability, we choose our final primary packing material. Then once primary packing material and process in our hand, we did our some R&D consistency batches and we load it for the stability. Once this R&D batches having passed in the stability or it's showing stability up to the shelf life, then we move to the next step, that is our final manufacturing process. So based on from this pre-formulation, formulation process development and container closure selection stability. Please go to the next slide. From this previous exercise, we come to know that this is our final manufacturing process. This is the ideal manufacturing process for like solution formulation, like for IV formulation or solution formulation. Like first FDS thawing, then mixing or compounding, then filtration, then filling, stopping, sealing, visual inspection, and storage. This is the ideal step for the manufacturing process of a liquid biosimilar product. Once we know, okay, this is our final manufacturing process, we need to characterize this process. Please go to the next slide. Yeah. So formulation in our hand, stability in our hand, manufacturing process in our hand, but this is limited up to R&D only. Now we need to characterize the process whatever we developed during the in our um, R&D batches or during our formulation stage. We can we can do process characterization at like small scale model also or commercial scale also. So this is organization decision. So what is process characterization? Process characterization is identification and control of critical process parameters, critical material attributes that influence the critical quality attributes. Which process parameter impact on our CQA? We need to identify during the process characterization. Process characterization helps to generate knowledge and understand the criticality of individual unit operation, process parameter and their impact on CQA. And as well as during process characterization, we need to define the normal operating range for each process parameter or critical process parameter. So goal of process characterization studies, identify the process parameters, critical process parameter, and impact of this critical parameter on quality of the product and yield. Justify manufacturing operating ranges and acceptance criteria for that. Understanding role of each process step. Identify interaction between process parameter and critical quality attributes. Ensure that process deliver a product with reproducible yield and purity in a particular operating range. Acceptance parameters for in-process performance parameters. Like in-process test, we need to define during process characterization. Please go to the next slide. So how we did process characterization? First, for each process step, we need to do the risk assessment. Different tools for risk assessment is already available, FMEA, Fishbone model. Based on that, we need to perform the risk assessment for particular step. By risk assessment, we will know this particular parameter having risk or critical for our step. Then we need to prepare protocol for the study of this parameter, planning, execution, and documenting the characterization procedure, operating parameters and operating ranges included in that protocol. Then the experimentation of this characterization process. Then identify the effect and operating ranges. Which operating range is suitable for this for our product, or which operating ranges produce the final product with desired quality. And then we need to prepare the final process characterization report. In that, we need to summarize all the operating ranges for this particular parameter. So here I summarize few, like identify how we need to identify the process parameter. Like this is our manufacturing process. So for first step, like DS thawing, what is the process parameter which is we think this is critical for our process? That is, thawing temperature is critical for or it will impact on CQA, and thawing time, it also impact on CQA. If we consider mixing or compounding, then mixing time, mixing temperature, mixing speed or RPM is the critical parameters. Then filtration, flow rate of filtration, filtration temperature, or if you are doing filtration with peristaltic pump RPM, product bubble point test, and filter adsorption is the critical steps for the filtration. Then filling temperature, filling flow rate, pre-purging, post-purging, and filling hold study or filling hold time. This is the critical steps for or critical process parameter for filling. If we move to the next step, stopping. Stopping pressure and post purging nitrogen pressure is the critical parameter for stopping process. The sealing, crimping pressure and crimping speed is the critical process parameter for this particular step. Then visual inspection time, visual inspection temperature, thermal cycling during the visual inspection. These are the parameters for this particular manufacturing process. Then once we identify the parameter, then we need to perform the risk assessment. Then we identify which is the critical parameter. Once we identify the critical parameter, we need to perform the experimentation for that parameter, and we need to come up with operating range and impacting CQA of each critical process parameter. And in the final, we come up with this list like that each step, their parameter, whether this parameter is CPP or non-CPP, or it is how impacting CQA and normal operating range. Like for example, thawing temperature. Thawing temperature is a CPP or non-CPP. Based on our study, we need to identify it. Like for example, it is CPP, is a critical process parameter. Which CQA is going to impact, like aggregation, pH, protein content. Then normal, what is the normal operating range? 2 to 8. This is for example 2 to 8 degrees Celsius is the normal operating range for. Based on our process characterization study, we need to identify like this, which is the critical process parameter, which critical quality attributes impacted by this parameter, and what is the normal operating range for this particular parameter. That is the main aim of process characterization study. Please go to the next slide. Yeah. Then last step is the process validation. We did the R&D development, we did the process characterization. Now we need to do the process validation. Process validation is collection and evaluation of data from process design stage through commercial production, which establish scientific evidence that process is capable of consistently delivering the quality product. Process validation having 3 stages. First stage is like process design. We already did it at R&D scale. Then process validation. This we need to do at commercial scale. And third stage is a continuous process verification. Process design consists of, this is a research and development phase, involves defining process for manufacturing, QTPP, QCQA, CPP, and risk assessment. In stage 2, process validation. We need to do a process validation at commercial scale. This is stage evaluates qualify the process design earlier to ensure it can produce consistent and reliable level of quality. And it involves the collecting and evaluating the data on all aspects and stages of the manufacturing process. And stage 3 is the continuous process verification. It involves ongoing validation during the production of commercial product to ensure the process design, to ensure that the design process qualified in previous stages continues to deliver the consistency of, like during the commercial production, we need to ensure this our process is consistently delivering the quality product. Then final the stages of process validation. First stage, process design. Second stage, process qualification, that nothing but process validation. And stage 3 is a continuous process verification. In process qualification, whatever CPP we decided, we need to monitor the CPP and their respective CQA in the process validation batches. And in continuous process validation, based on this process validation, we need to identify the in-process test, and this in-process test need to be included in the commercial batch record, and we need to monitor this in process test or critical parameters throughout the product life. Yeah. So this is the summary of overall biosimilar drug product development. Like first step is formulation and process development, involves QTP, CQA, manufacturing process development or formulation development. Then second step is the process characterization. In that, risk assessment, CPP, operating range and scale up included in process characterization. Then process validation consists of PPQ, nothing but process validation and continuous process verification. This is the summary of biosimilar drug product development. Yeah. So we need to move. We are going to move to next topic, or drug delivery devices. Drug delivery devices are specialized tools for the delivery of drug or therapeutic agent via specific route of administration. These are the devices used for the delivery of like our drug product with respect to the specific route of administration. Global different types of drug delivery devices are there, like auto injectors, pens, wearing devices like pumps, but mostly auto injectors are used in biosimilar. So I'm here focusing on mostly on auto injectors. So auto injector is nothing but self administration device for the delivery of drug product. So global auto injector market is projected to reach almost 104 billion by 2025, and it's 46 billion in 2020. So nowadays use of auto injectors and this different delivery devices is very common, and it's now very growing field in terms of like compound annual growth rate with 17.9%. Why this drug delivery devices or use of drug delivery devices is nowadays moving forward? Because the rising number of patients with chronic disease and autoimmune disorders like RA, rheumatoid arthritis and diabetes. Like diabetes patient need to take 3 times a day, dosing of 3 times a day. So it's not feasible for the patient to go every time to hospital and perform this dosing. So it's difficult for them. Same thing for a rheumatoid arthritis patient also. So this is the main driving factor for increasing the use of auto injectors, as well as rising the preference for self administration of drug. Now patient are confident to administer self administration of drug. Then availability of so many generic version of auto injector in market. Now the so many auto injectors, generic version of market auto injectors are available in the market, which is ready for use. So which factor we need to consider for the selection during the selection of drug delivery devices? Which formulation factor we need to consider? Like viscosity of our formulation, then volume of injection. What is the volume of injection? Like route of administration, design. Which type of design the drug delivery device having? Whether our formulation is single dose or multi-dose. These factors we need to be considered during the selection of drug delivery devices. So auto injector mostly having 2 types: disposable auto injectors like use and throw, and reusable auto injector. In disposable auto injector there are 2 types: two-step activation and three-step activation. Here I'm summarizing a few examples. Emerald D. This is the Samsung Biosep molecule of adalimumab. It's available in two-step auto injector. Three-step auto injector, Humira, like also adalimumab, Mabura, available in India also, Sinora, Actemra. This product available in three-step activation auto injector. And another is the reusable auto injector, Enabrel, like Intracept. This molecule or this product is available in reusable auto injector. In that case, we can remove this primary packing container from that auto injector, again add a new primary packing container or new PFS in that, and again use the same auto injector. That is the reusable auto injector. Auto injector, like mostly auto injector are PFS based. Like PFS is the major play the major role in that auto injector, and the another is the pen. This is the cartridge based auto injector. Cartridge is another type of the primary packing container like vial, PFS, and cartridge. So disposable pen also having two types: disposable and reusable. Disposable means use and throw. Reusable means we can use the reuse this pen by replacing the cartridge. Like different disposable pens available in Indian market, like Usulin pen, like it's insulin pen. Vepox is like erythropoietin pen. No-lag, this is also insulin pen. Reusable, no pen eco, this is the reusable pen for insulin product. Yeah. So this is the like components of auto injector. What is the major advantage of auto injector? The reduction in patient, and the patient can't see the needle, or so it's reduced the needle phobia. It's also reduced the needle stick injuries, and self administration is the one of the best like advantage for the auto injector. Reduce the dependency on doctor or hospital staff. Patient it himself can administer this drug or deliver this drug, so he reduce the dependency on doctor or hospital staff. So here you can see the major components of like auto injector, like PFS, like this is our drug or DP drug product in this particular container, whether it is a PFS in case of PFS based auto injector, or cartridge in case of cartridge based product. So this PFS and cartridge plus this device shield, and it combine, it comes to the auto injector. Auto injector having one spring based device. The spring controls the delivery time, as well as the injection depth of the, or injection volume of that particular product. So here are like three step. What is three-step activation and two-step activation? This is the classic example of Humira. In that we need to remove this first RNS, then we need to push it on our like injection site, and then we need to click it. Like this is the three steps: remove the RNS, then push it on our injection site, and then click. This is the three steps. But in case of two-step activation, like we need to remove the RNS first, then we need to push it. Only two steps. No need to click. That's why it's called two-step auto injector, and this called three-step auto injector. And in both cases, patient not able to see the needle, so it's reduce the patient phobia, as well as patient can see whether our product is injected or not. This just viewing window is there, you can see in this picture. Once it injected, like it's in two-step activation, it comes yellow, means your product is delivered. Please go to the next slide. So this is the pen auto injector. This is the component of pen auto injectors. Like pen auto injectors, it's like calibrated pen. Like if you know the insulin, like you can like if you want to take 100 IU dose, you just need to adjust the 100 IU. Then we need to attach the needle and take the injection. These are the components like needle. This removable needles. Every time we need to replace it. Then cartridge is there inside the pen, then white cap, and this is a body of this is a calibrated device. We can adjust the dose and we can reuse it. This is mostly used in like multi-dose products like insulin, erythropoietin, and it's like a very small device you can carry with you. So this is all about the small introduction about the auto injector. This is the huge field. Nowadays, every industry want to launch their product in auto injector because of this the advantages of this auto injector and drug delivery devices. So it's a growing industry and having huge opportunities. So go to next slide. So these are few references I enlisted here. This is all about this like small introduction about process of formulation development from starting the R&D development to the commercial process validation, and small like introduction about auto injectors or drug delivery devices.